Oh wait, no, we got stuff to
Oh
do
wait,
first.
yeah, we got to do. Hey, we got a lot coming up here, right? We started the year off. We got the traditional F3 Nation State of the Nation coming
It's
up.
true. Yes, every 6 months the SLT addresses the nation, and so we do have the State of the Nation coming up on what day is that? The 20th. It's on the 20th at 8 p.m. It will stream live from YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Now, how does one prepare when you're in the Nantan seat? How do you prepare for that? Do you wear special socks, or what are you doing to prepare?
It's good for you to, you've heard the scripture that talks about putting on the whole armor, right? And in F3 terms, you always would start with foundation, because foundation is, that's when you look at the Q source, those first 5 points in the Q source are foundational points, right? So you always want to start with a good foundation. And the best way to have a good foundation as a man, start your feet. And the best way that you can protect and have foundational excellence on your feet is to wear mud gear socks.
Yep. That's right.
It's facts.
The year 2026, the year of the Tootsies, right?
The year, the year of the sock, because they're an excellent sock. They moisture wicking. Depending on which ones you get, you got a little merino wool in there, right? You can get a crew height sock, my favorite. And they protect your feet. They do a nice job of keeping you from getting blisties on your tootsies, as you might say. And generally, all around, they remind you that life is too short for certain kinds of things. Life is too short to accept less in many areas of your life. And one of those, of course, is life is far too short to wear crappy socks.
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dread, Dark Helmet, and me, The Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone.
And
we're back.
We're back. That was good. That was
we're super enthusiastic about it too. You can tell.
That's our best one yet. Well, last episode we had some good conversation about goals and sort of what does that look like, which I thought was really good. I feel like I've gotten some feedback from various guys locally that have listened, and I think it has been helpful for myself as I went back and listened to it. But as we're moving into this new year, I think one of the things we initially, I was doing a little bit better job of pulling in questions from packs out there in the pod packs or whatever we call them now. But wanted to bring that back just because I do think we're continuing to get some questions, and there's obviously this is a great space, right, to bring some of those things. But so I am, for guys that are listening, if you have a question or if things come up, toss those in the comments wherever you're listening or watching, and we'll make sure we bring those forward. But
you could email them, right?
You could
they could find you on Twitter, or Dread, they could send a carrier pigeon, couldn't they?
I used to say that. I forgot about that.
Yeah. You used to say that. Yeah. Smoke signal. I am at the plague at f3nation.com if you want to send it to me or find me on Twitter, wherever. But would love to hear if you do have questions. Would love to talk through them here. I do have a question. Somebody had asked me this morning just at a workout, but they were questioning why Freed to Lead says there is no stretching at an F3 workout. And so I thought we could sort of talk through that here sort of as a warm-up question. There's a comment in there about there is no stretching in an F3 workout. But curious, what is that? Why do you think that's in there? What does that mean? What's that getting at?
Because there's no stretching at an F3 workout.
Simple as that. Yeah.
No, I think at the time we wrote that, we were trying to dissuade men from trying to introduce their own. Everybody has different ideas about stretching, right? I mean, some guys don't stretch at all. Some guys think it's the most important thing, whatever. And OBT and I felt like it's personal. If you want to stretch before you show up.
Mhm.
Now, I've been to plenty of workouts where they stretch. In fact, the original AG, the older we get out there, the closer we're getting to half the workout as a stretch. So yeah, it's fine. If you want to stretch, have at it.
Now, I want to get real dogmatic about it and say it's that no man should ever stretch. The tighter your muscles are, the more, the better it is.
I stretch before. I get to every workout about 10 to 15 minutes before before StartX. And I have a routine I go through to get ready so that when we start, I'm ready to go. I'm not expecting us to.
Because you just don't know what the cue's going to call.
Yeah.
He may call stretching. He may not.
They may call. And generally, if he does, I'll do Merkins or I'll just go along with it. But so that's why.
Yeah. I mean,
for anyone listening out there struggling, stretch away.
Yeah.
And as long as the guys in the workout don't kick back at you.
Yeah. I would say that sounds like, upon hearing it, you saying it there, Plague, that sounds like old school Metro kind of.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that sounds like a thing where, and you'll still see it. Like if you were to come to Charlotte Metro and go to,
short card.
like on, I would say a short card or on Monday. I went to Big Hair on Monday and short card this morning. There's no like, hey, let's stretch. It is like 5:15, boom, and they go. Right.
In fact, the boot camp ethic used to be at 5:15 or 5:30, whenever the cue just turned and went.
I was just going to say, I was at Big Hair on Monday.
Watches.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they looked around a little bit. There was a guy, screaming in at 5:14 and 39 seconds.
Leave that
and
guy
they were
behind.
They stood there for a second and then looked at the watch and it was like, well, he'll figure it out. Yep. And he came one shoe on or whatever, running as fast as he can behind us. But guys have a general idea where you're kind of going for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah. A very Metro ethic to just say now is beginning time. And I think that's the, if you remove that kind of, edge out of it, I think there's value in saying you should not plan on stretching during an F3 workout, right? You can't count on a guy doing that.
You should come ready.
You should probably come ready, right? It's a preparedness thing. I stretch before I leave the house because I got to roll things and all kinds of whatever, and I do a little.
And I think if you're coming from another region, you show up here and like, there's no disclaimer, there's no guy introducing himself, or it's just it's going to be.
They don't recite the mission.
Guys sitting here looking at their watch, and at 5:15, expected to go. The first exercise we did today at short car, we're standing there. Short car's pretty hyper about this, but we're all standing there looking at our watch. exactly at 5:15.
0515.
Boom, we're doing Merkins. First
Gridlock
exercise.
Is just go.
Yeah.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes
and then
sense.
woe be to you if you don't finish exactly at 6.
Oh yeah, and they have a very specific don't go and carry your crap to your car either, right? When we said come to the the original spot, they call the arrows because there's arrows on the ground, right, in this parking garage. Come back to the arrows. It's not go put your stuff down then come back. It's you better come right then. Right. They're pretty strict in the hot box, but I would say in general though. The reasoning behind that now, I would say for sure is, you should be prepared for whatever it is at the stroke of 5:15. You should not be counting on another man to allow time for you to do your special stretch because you're, sorry, man, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But, the way, I guess I would say I'm mellow about this. I just think if I'm not saying stretching isn't exercising. So if you're the cue, and you're doing stretching, then I'll do it. Guys calling it, I'll do it. But my feeling on it is that it's self-correcting. If a workout is becoming too soft, you're going to lose guys and maybe the thing goes away. So if Qs are calling stuff that guys aren't interested in, I mean, let's face it, you're not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 or whatever to go stretch in a parking lot. You stretch in your den. You know, you don't need to do that.
Now, I would say, depending on how much stretching I have or haven't done prior to, if I'm leading that day, you know, we'll probably do a little windmill or a little something, you know?
Yeah.
But even then, I almost always, at the stroke of 5:15, we're off and running.
Yeah.
I might run to a place, then go stretch a little bit, you know, or something like that. But, you know, we'll do some warm up or whatever. But yeah, very rare that we would stand around for any period of time. But again, that's a difference in my opinion, and another guy's opinion might be different. This morning, you know, yesterday it's quite the juxtaposition. Yesterday I went to something called Big Hair Monday. It is not like it is by far not the most bat flippy of bat flipper workouts, but it's pretty good pace. Like you get moving.
There'll be bat flippers there.
Yeah. But it's not like a Ranger or Shark Tank or something where it's like, you know, So, so we just took right off, right? There was no stretch, there was no nothing. Like he just took off and then started doing stuff. This morning, it was a guy, it was his second time he'd ever queued, right? And so he's very focused on like, okay, I want to make sure I call these things right. They call it block party down here in Fort Mill.
Oh, okay.
So, yep. And second time he'd ever queued. And so it was a lot more stretching because that's what he was calling, you know, that's what he was used to. But so
I've also seen some guys who have the queue like to let everybody, the packs, mill around like at 5:14 and go, oh man, is there a queue or what? And then they like to jump out of their car and run through the group and say, I got the queue. Just like some guys like to do that. Right.
Or my favorite way, not really legitimately favorite, like I would do it all the time, but one of my favorite ways that I've experienced because I just think it's hysterical. It's peak metro. Is there's this, you were just talking about Shark Tank, and that's a Thursday workout. And guys have maybe heard us talk about this before too, but
by the way, Thursday, I think Shark Tank's gone away.
Has it really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go Lazarus that thing.
Right. Not filling. It wasn't filling. Well, I don't, you know, so it's interesting, kind of a side talk, but if a workout ceases to fill a need,
then it's okay to let it go.
I mean, guys sometimes are trying to pump life into a workout. I was like, hey, there's guys who are going somewhere else, or it's no longer filling a need. You know, Big Hair almost went that way.
It did. Yeah. It was down to almost nothing, and then it caught back life again. Well, they killed Mothership Monday. That
was intentional. They killed that. Yeah,
well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, and so that probably helped breathe life back into Big Hair. But so on Thursdays at Shark Tank, it starts at 5. I think it starts at 5:30, or did, and at 5:15 was extra credit. You could go and run, and usually they were just running. Sometimes they do exercises and stuff too, but you have 15 minutes of extra credit. And the way that it worked was you get there at 5:15, you go do this extra credit, and then at 5:30 you'd buzz back by the parking lot to pick up guys that showed up just for the 5:30 part, right? Yeah. Now, you might think to yourself, if I was doing that, we'd stop and be like, hey guys, all right, everybody ready? No, this is like you would wait ready, like in the starting blocks at 5:30, ready, waiting to see when the extra credit guys are coming, because they'll just run past you. Yeah. And if you don't catch them,
they just run right by.
They just go. And you got to run and catch them.
I went to a workout this morning. We had to convince another guy to start an extra credit, or pre-run as we like to call it. We started at 4:10. And we got 8.5 mile run in before the workout. Yeah.
That's that's one way to warm up.
So we were warm. When we do that,
I'll say this: if I'm queuing, I would rather at a boot camp start out slowish. You know, with a slow, shortish movement, then side straddle hops, whatever. In fact, I'll start with side straddle hops almost always, and maybe mountain climbers or something, just to get your blood pumping before I hit it. You know, I'd rather do that. But every guy's got his own thing.
You know, our local wait time, he will start a workout and he'll say, for the next 45 minutes, you are not my friend, you know, and then he'll go into One of my favorite all-time wait time quotes. If I'm ever impersonating wait time,
quality.
That's
quality. Yeah.
But there's a kind of a principle here though that you're hitting on, and I think is interesting, and that is this, and guys get real dogmatic sometimes about, like, and very rigid sometimes about, like, well, you didn't say the disclaimer, or you didn't say the right words in the disclaimer, or you got to say the mission and the 5 core principles before you start working out. You got to do this, you got to do that. We'd say the pledge, we do this, whatever the thing is, right? And I think that, look, I'm all for culture, right? And I think that's awesome. And I think the problem though sometimes is a guy has it in his mind what he thinks is best, and he then seeks to limit the liberty of another man to choose to do what he thinks is best, right? And how he would like to do it. And on any given day, now I get it, there's a site queue and all that kind of stuff, and that's a leader who I think should look at the AO where he is, right, and say, I'm responsible for the outcome of how well workouts go here generally, right? If he has some kind of crazy checklist or something and all these rules that he's made up of all this stuff that has to happen at his AO, there might be guys that love that idea. I'll tell you what, I would never show up there. I have no interest in something like that. I'm not gonna, because every time I would go, I wouldn't be able to help myself. I would probably say, well, what's the principle of what you're trying to get done here, right? And if he told me, well, I want guys to be unified, I want this, I would probably, through example, try and show him other ways that could be accomplished without seeking to limit the liberty of another man, right? And create more rules and then try and enforce those rules and then figure out how now you're not leading, you're just enforcing, and it's just it can turn into a whole thing. And I unfortunately I think I see it quite a bit, where guys get pretty worked up about, well, we have certain rules around here. And I just tell you, if you have rules at your AO, right? We have 5 core principles, a mission, and a credo. That's what we have at the national level. And that is what is required loosely, right? And there's interpretation through all that, right?
Yeah.
To be an F3 workout or to participate and call yourself an F3 workout, right? So if a guy goes indoors, we're going to say, hey, guess what? F3 guys might have worked out together, but that's not an F3 workout, right? They invited their wives. F3 guys might have gotten together with their wives and worked out, but that ain't no F3 workout, right? That ain't what that is, right? So there, whatever. But as soon as a guy starts doing that kind of thing, what he's really seeking to do is to remake F3 in his own image. And unfortunately, my friends, anytime you make a rule outside of the 5 core principles and the mission and the credo, anytime you do something like that, you're making it about you. And I know that's going to hurt some feelings, and I understand, but that's what you're doing. Now, sometimes you might need a little bit more of that kind of thing in your local area to help for a period of time, to help move the culture in a certain way or to shape it in a certain way. But to make it a dogmatic rule then means if you don't follow that, what, you're going to kick a guy out? You're going to tell me he can't come back? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then now you're at risk of violating core principles, right?
Right. Yeah. I appreciate the connection there. I do think it is interesting and something we've talked about, right? I mean, when we talk about leadership or freedom or even just meteorologist Jim, and sort of why
somebody read their post this morning.
Right. Well, why
is that just, did Jim go out
Jim was this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned some Gyms this morning.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, because I do think, right. I mean, I think that is I feel like I fight that on a regular basis, and maybe it's not meteorologist Jim, but even just abdicating, decision making. And for me, it's a program or a checklist, right? Like I am just on the hunt for the perfect checklist that can just, tell me that I'm missional, right? And I think it's interesting because I previous, before talking with you guys about that, I didn't realize what I was doing, right? I mean, I think that's part of it, right? And a lot of guys come into F3 with that. I did want to chat. There was, one of the comments that I found, we've also talked a lot about thoughts and feelings and sort of self-limiting beliefs. And there was a comment out there on the YouTube sphere. I don't know if that's what we call it, but that was really
the tubosphere.
Yeah, I don't know.
The universe?
Universe.
But
Yeah.
Y-O-U, what?
Yeah.
With that? No? Okay, forget it.
And there was, essentially we're trying to talk about self-limiting beliefs, right? And how men should be removing that. But there was a comment that I wanted us to talk through because it was a comment about, essentially the comment is like, oh yeah, it's all internal and it has nothing to do with the resources, access, expectations, really sort of almost like a victim mindset kind of response.
Maybe not. Give me a little more context. I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, so our this was one of the shorts that we put out there about just like the self-limiting beliefs and the impact that they have on us as men. And the response was, yeah, it's all internal. It has nothing to do with resources, access to said resources, expectations to work your hands to the bone while being given dimes, children, depression, grief, loss, a system that functions on the backs of regular
Oh,
people.
it was sarcastic.
Oh.
Is that what you meant?
Well, maybe.
It definitely sounds like it.
They go on to say definitely none of those things, just self-limiting beliefs and a lack of discipline and
That
recognizing
sounds sarcastic.
not recognizing
you're right,
science as a legitimate source of empirical evidence.
Well,
but I think where my mind was going is I feel like our core principles do give access to all men, regardless of mental health and resources. Now, do we find? I mean, we've talked about here before, right? There are AOs all across the world where you find a billionaire working out next to the garbage man, or but I don't know. I want to just kind of get your thoughts.
It sounds to me, and I could be wrong. And so now we're in the game of trying to infer from what this person wrote. Are they being sarcastic?
Yes.
It certainly sounds like it, but but we have to make an inference about that. We don't know for sure. Sounds like it. If only there was a sarcasm font. I think we've talked about that before, but like if there was a font for that, then we would all know. But it sounds to me like that this person may be saying, and I don't know if it's a man, woman, or otherwise. It doesn't say. I imagine probably just has some random username. But it sounds to me like someone's been hurt here, right? Someone's been hurt. Someone's been frustrated because they themselves, or maybe someone they love or someone they care about, someone they've observed even, has tried to overcome these things themselves and has been unsuccessful in some way. And so therefore us saying things like, well, it's largely in your mind. It's almost all a decision that you make. It is choices that you make, and it is things that you like, and they go to themselves, well, that's not my experience because it didn't work for me. Right. And I would maybe even, I could relent. Can't wait to hear what Dredd has to say about this, but I would relent and even kind of for the sake of the argument, capitulate and say, yep, you're right. If no one in the whole world had ever overcome things that had no access to anything, like you look at people like, Ben Carson and, and other guys who've come up out of nothing. I mean, nothing, should have had no ability whatsoever, had access to no resource, had no money, had nothing. Right. And somehow they still managed to do it. Is that an exception? I mean, it's an exception to the norm, but does that mean that nobody else can do it? And he was some kind of, special. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that anyone is so special that they are the one single person that oppression applies to, and that there's no hope for them to overcome any of these things, because it is mostly in your head. And I understand that people don't want to believe that. I understand that that's frustrating for people to hear, because I would love, nothing would please me more than to maintain the life that I had been living, saying it's my dad's fault.
Mm-hmm.
These things that I struggle with, these things that are my problems that I have, is my dad's fault. And if I had a different dad, I would feel differently. I would be different. But it's his fault. I'm stuck with it. That's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think, Dredd?
So I think goes to the continuum of the human heart as it approaches chaos being defined as uncontrollable circumstance. So the things that happen that we don't like them, right? It's just chaotic.
We have no control over them. They're just happening.
Yeah, it's uncontrollable circumstance, right? So on the one end, you have adapters, and on the other end, you have controllers, and everybody's kind of in between. So an adapter, when he sees chaos, he finds ways to adapt to it, right? He does not let it control him, but he doesn't deny it either. He says, okay, this is the way it is, and I'm going to focus my energy on how it could be. But he doesn't spend a lot of time concerning himself why it is that way. Whereas the controller isn't concerned about the way it is. He's focused on how it should be from his perspective. So the adapter says, it is what it is, but how could it be? Controller just says, it shouldn't be this way. Here's how it should be. And that's why a controller focuses on trying to control chaos, that which is inherently uncontrollable. So an adapter would say, well, yeah, I have there are circumstantial things to the way I grew up. I grew up poor. I grew up without a father. I grew up with an abusive father. Those things just were. They were what they were. And because I didn't like them, I poured my energy into what they could be. Ben Carson, grew up poor. I could be a doctor. For instance, I'm Clarence Thomas, grew up poor. Could be a Supreme Court justice. Could. And instead of saying, well, there are structural limitations, there's inequities that I'm going to use power to try to adjust to make it fair. Fairness doesn't come into the calculus of the adapter. He's like, ugh.
Nothing's
so whether
fair.
or
It's
not,
not supposed to be.
Rains, sometimes it rains, sometimes it doesn't. I'm either going to get a good umbrella or get tougher about having water on my head. That's what an adapter would say. So take that continuum of people and say, how does someone who, how would they react to the idea of self-limiting beliefs? That the adapter, of course, say, I decline to engage in them. I'm not going to limit myself because that would stop me from being what I could be. Like as Dark likes to text or to tweet, stop being less. I decline to be less. I decline. Yeah, I decline to let my upbringing be a limiting principle. I decline to let my bad knees be a limiting principle. I decline.
Yeah.
Right? Those are two things from you.
100%. You're right.
You declined. You declined.
Yes.
You adapted to your knees by getting new knees. Right? I mean,
and even now when they hurt, I adapt by simply saying, I can live with that.
And you go to a workout and maybe you're getting left behind a little bit by guys with knees don't hurt. And you go, well, I decline to let my painful knee, I'm going to do the best I can. And a controller in that situation would say, it's not fair. And usually he's doing it on behalf of some third person that he's defending and say,
which is
not
a
fair.
Fake proxy typically, but
fake proxy, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not fair that some guys' knees don't hurt, so we're going to slow the whole workout down.
Better not do that for me, boy.
Well, yeah, you better not, right? But that's so when you present the theory of self-limiting principles to people, to me, that comment, Pagu, was from a controller who rejects the idea that you're not what you could be because there are external reasons to keep you from being what you should be. And so it's not about resources. It's not about, it's not about this list of things. It's all internal. Of course, that's the way
because it has to be all one way or the other way.
Yeah, right. In his mind, whereas the adapter is saying it really doesn't all these external things, whether I have these or don't really matter if I'm not willing to adapt and take.
Because look, there are plenty
and
of people. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, seek advantage in the chaos instead of expending energy to try to control it. I mean, that's how I see that kind of comment. As soon as you started reading it, I'm like,
I agree. I know. And the thing of it too is I find, and again, I'm not trying to pick on this person, whoever they may be. I doubt there are packs, right? They probably just came across this thing.
Could be. There's guys like that.
Did a little post and ghost, and then, I mean, who knows, right? I'm just saying, who knows who it is, right? But we go, they're willing to play the game on that side, right? But if I took the inverse and said, but what about this person who had all the advantage in the entire world and turned out to be a piece of crap, right? But, well, then what could we possibly blame it on other than that person's self-limiting belief?
Right.
Like, what else could it possibly be except what's between that guy's ears, right? Because he had all the money in the world, he went to the best schools, he did the thing, and yet. I mean, find me a system, right, that explains this guy being terrible, even though all the advantages were there for him.
Right.
It never works both ways, right? It only ever works the one way.
Right.
But I agree with Dredden, and I'm not saying to pat myself on the back, but when you said the knee thing, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but that's exactly it, right? That's not even a mental limitation.
Yeah,
that is a physical thing, is an affliction that came with genetics that made me have terribly arthritic and spur filled knees. And when the doctor said, I was like, I don't remember what I was, I guess it was 40, just over 40. And he was like, you have the knees of a 75-year-old man. And I was like, well, what do we do? And he's like, well, you stop running. And I said, well, you're gonna have to come up with a different one. And he said, well, you're going to have to, he said, well, we could do surgery, but you're a little young for that. And I said, okay, well, what happens, right? And so they explained the whole thing. And then he goes, most people do them one at a time. And I was like, well, what's the replacement, what's the recovery time for a knee replacement? 6 weeks. Well, if I do both, what's the recovery time? 6 weeks. Well, then why wouldn't I do both now? Like, how dumb do you have to be, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. But that is because and I don't know where it came from entirely. Some of it was baked in there, and a lot of it I think came through good mentors, being around good men who were good examples. A lot of growing up, because I mean, I did not have an example at home of that, right? But where you look and you go, most of what I've accomplished in my life has been because I didn't know, or I refused to accept that the opposite was true. People are like, oh, you got a sniffle, you need to stay inside. I'm like, actually, I think I just run it off. I tell my wife this all the time, and she rolls her eyes, right? And in a loving way. But like, the sickness is going around the house, and I just say it out loud. I go, oh, well, I refuse to participate in this sickness. And she's like, well, you're going to get sick. Maybe. But I'm not going to be a willing participant.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
Like a cold ripping through the house is the chaos, right?
Is what I put a mask on, quarantine myself on the third floor, not go out? Like, what am I?
Right.
I don't understand.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder if, in some of this, thinking about what we had talked about before, I think I could be way off here, but I feel like the zebra jockey is the metaphor, if we want to call it
the adaptation metaphor.
Yeah.
Right. Like navigating that chaos, right. For men.
Yep.
But I want to dive into that, but I wanted to kind of pause a little bit too, because I think one of the other pieces of feedback that I don't know if this is just getting relayed to me or you guys as well, but just sort of there's some like the repetitive nature of some of our topics. And being that this is episode 43, thinking about the concept of like 43 feet being out ahead. How does that apply to maybe this Whetstone thing that we're doing? And is it sort of this like swirl, and over time you make progress, but there is sort of this need to essentially cover whatever's on a man's heart or mind to get him,
the old I can't even remember what we called it, Dark. Our first podcast, what was it called? Do you remember?
Oh, well, we went
43 feet. It was 43 feet.
Yeah.
And we did a different a chapter of the Q source every time.
Every week.
And we did it twice, right?
We did do
We
it
went
twice.
all the
Yep,
way
we
through
went
50, and
then we did
and
one
we
more. Yep.
and we stopped. So every episode was different because we did it for different thing, right? Then we did Minivan Centurion. I think.
Yeah, we did Q Source twice through.
Yeah.
Then we did Minivan Centurion, and then we did Zebra Jockey.
Oh, we did.
But
I don't even remember doing Zebra.
We did do a little Zebra Jockey.
Yeah.
It's 43 feet. I guess it's not. Is that because I think the concept there, right, is you're preparing the road for sort of out in front of the men.
I love
leading.
But yes, I mean that's the metaphor of the 43 feet.
Yeah, for me, it's this way.
Yeah,
I'm not that far ahead of you. I'm only 43 feet ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm figuring things out, paving a road, yelling back. It's not like I'm standing on some mountaintop at this road that I built 27 years ago. I mean, we are forging ahead and making the pathway straight for the guys coming behind us, but they're not that far behind. That was what I was trying to get that across from the mentorship standpoint is, the best lessons that you are able to, and wisdom that you're able to provide to the younger guys, to your blades, are the ones that you learn most recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just screwed this up, man. I just screwed this up. Here, don't screw this up. That's why I like the idea of 43. And I like the idea that in this Whetstone podcast that we're doing now is we are not following a format. We're just dealing with the chaos.
It's painful for me, by the way.
Oh, you'd rather a format? I can go either way.
No, he's just kidding. He's just
I don't care.
He's saying that because he feels like he gets beat up. He gets picked on sometimes from the guys locally of like, man, they just raked you down, didn't they?
Public shaming, right?
Yeah. It's like guys ask them. They're like, man,
I like it. I think for me, that's, is my preference. I do think, initially when we started this, I was like, okay, what's the plan? What are the topics? Are we going to do a spur and a Socratic and we'll just do it just the same way you guys did it. Right. But I love that it's turned into,
we got to move to a different 43. To a guy who says that we're repetitive, number one, I would say, and I think I know who it is. I shouldn't say that. I don't know who it is. That's not a fair thing to say. But I bet if I was to guess, this guy's not the strongest guy in the world because he hasn't built muscle because he's never used those things over and over and over again and done repetitive things, right? That's how you build muscle. It's through repetitive motions. So if he's got it all figured out, stop listening. I'm so thankful. And what I would actually ask you to do is start your own podcast so that I can listen to it. So I know what I should be expecting, right? Because if you figured it all out, that would be really awesome. But I mean, sure, it's repetitive. Yeah, I think that's a feature.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a feature.
One of the
I
other
do miss
things
the Pullman though.
Well, we should bring it back.
May rest in peace, the coach.
Yeah,
and the mixed egg, right? It was everybody's favorite.
I would miss that too.
That's a separate show. You could spend a whole show on the mixed egg, right?
We brought us a mixed egg today. Just in your Starbucky little hand.
Yeah. I forgot about the Starbucky hands. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I am curious of what one of the things as we're unpacking this, right? We've talked about several different topics, right? In terms of the that are kind of in this like chaos realm, but if we were gonna have some sort of a framework or like fit some of these things in, I'm curious your guys' thoughts. So I don't know if this is I don't know, but I want to run this by you guys because I think there are some different ways that guys might be able to take some of the things we've talked about and really walk through this. But one of the things that I think is kind of related to, and I don't know if depending on a guy's gesture, but like, and I don't know, maybe it's even disruption, but like the fire ant sort of protocol, like this idea of arresting dissent. Like, is that a way to create chaos? Is that completely unrelated? Where are your thoughts on
are we talking about socks again? Because I feel like the metaphor was the mud. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
When you say arresting dissent, what do you mean?
Well, I should have anticipated you would ask that. I think, sort of like the descent of a thought into the heart, right? So
descent.
Descent. Not. I thought you meant DISSENT. Descent.
Yeah. How do you stop the thought from
coming?
Right. Okay. So I'll tell you. First of all, you have to accept the fact that you're going to have, let's just call them negative thoughts, unproductive, selfish, sinful, if you're a believer, thoughts. You're just going to have them. I for a time as a Christian, I tried to not have those thoughts. And when I would have those thoughts, I'd beat myself up, and say, how am I going to stop those thoughts? And then I realized, well, those thoughts are coming from wherever they come from. And I can't stop them from coming across my brain any more than I can stop some guy cutting me off in traffic. Right. They are something to respond to unless I say, what if I don't? So I tried to strengthen my dominion in the sense of I make the choice whether to let that thought descend into my heart to become a feeling. I have dominion over that. So if the comment about, you guys are repetitive, that's a thought. I can observe it. Well, maybe we are. I don't know. I don't like it, or, whatever. It's there. I could let that go down in my heart as a feeling, and the feeling, I suppose, would be resentment. Well, I resent you for saying that. Who are you to say that? I don't like to be criticized. It's resentment. Not just the thought, which is you said that, but resentment. And for me, resentment leads to anger. For some guys, it leads to depression. But I know I know that's where it's going. So I stop it right there. I just isolate it. And for me, as a believer, my primary tool of isolation is to ask the Lord to take it away. And so I picture a whiteboard, like the one in my office sitting right there, right? See that? I picture that whiteboard, and I picture a dirty hand writing it in red marker on, that's the thought. It's up on my whiteboard. And then I ask the Lord to come in with the eraser and just erase it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Don't let me dwell on it. Don't let it sink down here. Just, fight that. Fight the battle here. Fight the battle here rather than trying to fight the battle here. I can't win here. Whether it's my jester or whatever, he has access to that, to my intellect. He does not have access to my heart unless I allow it. And, that's up to me. And so no control here, but dominion here. And, for me to say, it's pretty simple. Thought hits whatever. And it doesn't have to be something somebody said. It could be a thought that I have, maybe a lustful thought or whatever. And it's sitting there. It's like, oh, and I just say, Lord, you should wipe that away for me. I just picture that way. Just wipe that away. That doesn't have any business on my whiteboard. Just wipe it clean.
It's funny.
That works for me.
I used to, I hadn't thought about this in a long time. And clearly it's a practice I have not employed in a long time, but I used to picture a computer desktop and a little recycle bin, back in the day when that was a thing that you had on there, and you just drag that thing and then you just
put it in the trash.
And I would try and imagine that sound in my head even, right? That emptying the trash sound, right?
Yeah.
Kind of picture it in my head. So it would go away. I haven't done that in a long time.
I think there's a lot of ways you could do it. You could say, you could walk into your kitchen, which is nice and clean, all that stuff, and somebody has, left a filthy, dirty dish there, and you could say, okay, well, I'm just going to wash that dish. There's a lot of imagery you could use in your own head to say, how do I clear out the negativity out of here?
And it's funny that metaphor actually of the dirty dish, it makes me think, because there is a practical side to that as well, right? So what Dred's talking about of a thing that happens that you can't control, in this case, a thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have dominion over whether or not you allow it to pass, from here into your heart, right? You have this is the dominion gap or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, right? But because it just made me think, as you were talking about it, like, especially early in marriage, my wife was not inclined toward housekeeping. That was not something that was on her radar. She did not care, and it just wasn't a thing. And I would come home sometimes at the end of the day, and there would be like cereal boxes, the kids or who or her or whatever, right, sitting on the counter, open, just sitting there with a bowl half full of milk and some, and I'd be like, what is going on here?
Mm.
Right. And I would get frustrated or mad or whatever. Right. Or I could objectively just go, this is here. If I don't like it here, I have the ability to remove it myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I ended up, because long story longer, she and I just had to have some long conversations about what's missional, what's not missional. And then we don't let things that aren't missional affect our emotions, right? If it's a non-missional item, then we're not allowed to get mad at each other about it. We just simply discuss it and we go, by not doing this or by having this here, or whatever, having the dishes out or whatever, right? That's a thing that could then lead to other things that could possibly have missional consequences, right? If we don't discuss it or we don't this or we don't clean it or whatever, right? So we back out of that and make sure that we discuss things early and often, right? But the point being that again, whether it's thoughts or whether it's stretching or whether none of the things matter. The point is, and the point in the YouTube comment and everything else is, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, the truth, capital T truth, is that how you handle these things, what you do about these things, whether they're things that happen, whether they're things that you think, whatever it might be, the output of that, the other end of that, is almost entirely up to you. It is an act of will. It is an act of agency. You cannot convince me otherwise, because it is capital T truth. That is just facts.
Yep. And some of what I was attempting to do, right, I think going back and looking at, because we've covered a lot, and a lot of things, different things related to this. And so going back through some of our episodes, and we've talked a lot about maybe different hues of the jester, right? So sort of this like quest for affirmation, righteous anger. We've talked about the nice man trap. We've talked about the possum in the kitchen was one. We talked about Fat Guy Island. And then we
my
had
third favorite vacation destination.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about some of this, and so wanting to kind of put that together for guys in a way. But what's interesting, right? When I go back and survey all those episodes, two things continue to come up as tactics for resistance, and so I wanted to just make sure we touch on those. But sort of this,
it'd be kind of redundant if you do.
It would, yeah, right. So number one would be the Whetstone relationship, right? One of the comments we made was men will lie to themselves and see what he wants to see, and generally incapable of identifying some of these beliefs on our own, right? Without a stone. And then the other one I wanted you to unpack a little bit is sort of like the what if I don't, the razor, kind of when a man's tempted to react emotionally, he must ask, what if I don't? But talk us through, like, what have been maybe some scenarios when you've used that?
Sure. Because that's something that Dred brought to me in during a Whetstone. And, I think that it's something that I had kind of done, but in my mind, it was always more like you must choose not to react. So you must be more disciplined, and you must, hold yourself, in check, and all this kind of stuff. But phrasing it the way that he did, with kind of but I mean, it was less pressure of I must, be highly rigid and controlled of myself, and more of just like embrace the chaos of like, well, what if I don't do that, and what does happen, and what are the negative consequences, and for me, a lot of times it would be that movement from a thought to a feeling, because just like you was talking about, right? As Dre was saying, like, somebody says something negative about me, right? And if it's a guy that I respect, right, or if I perceive that I'm not being loved, right, that's a gesture. I mean, that is my, that need for approval, that desire for that kind of thing is a gesture, right? It's my gesture. And so a guy would say something disrespectful or not acknowledge me in some way or something, and I would go instantly from he just said, who knows what he said, whatever the thing that he said, I would go instantly to, he thinks I'm a piece of crap. I am a piece of crap. I'm going to beat myself up about it. I'm going to start sucking my thumb. I'm going to get in my golf cart and drive off and, be mad, or whatever. Right. And it was like the question of what if I don't is, okay, even if it was true, right? What if I don't react that way? What if I just said, okay, that's feedback for me to improve on, right? Or the guy, says a thing and you go, well, what if I don't take it that way at all? Like, what if I, so this idea of, again, a self-limiting belief that I will jump to right away versus just explore the possibility in your mind of what would it mean if you did not react, if you did not accept it, if you did not, do these things. And I did it in other places in my life pretty easily, right? I would play the what if I don't get, like someone asked me to do something and, right, that I don't agree with or something, like, what if I don't do that? Nothing, I don't care, whatever, right? But it was always these gesture thoughts that would catch me. And so I think it's, for me, it's sitting right here, behind my computer, right? That's one of the questions that I ask myself when I'm confronted with just about anything now, right? Is like, okay, well, what if I don't? Is a question you just constantly ask yourself. And I don't know if other guys do this or not. This might just be in my little weird head, but I'm constantly, I think it's the ADD. I just have constantly like scenarios that just sort of run in my head. Like whether it's something I've experienced in the past, or it's like something I anticipate could happen in the future, or I know that this is coming, as a thing that might be a problem, right? In the future. So what do I, should I, essentially, how do I steel myself against that? What are the, and so now one of the questions I ask as I think through these scenarios is, all right, if this happens, what if I don't do anything about it?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a sort of constant preparation
It's
and thinking through.
It's the flip of the default. So default position for men is, if provoked, the default is to respond. And in some way, that's a default. That's why men are so easily provocable. But what if the default was the other way, which is to not respond? What if that were the case? That if someone says something provocative that you think demands a response, and you say, well, what if I don't? Yeah. What are the downsides of the default of not responding? So this happens in my law practice all the time. Get a letter from the other lawyer accusing my client or something, or the other. Lawyer letters are expensive and worthless. They don't get in front of juries. Nobody sees them. It's just, they're provocative. That's why they're there. They're trying to make you do something. Client looks at it, he goes, oh, well, we need to respond to this. And I say, well, what if we don't? What do you mean? What if I don't spend $2,000 of your money writing a response to this ridiculous set of accusations? Well, they need to know we're not weak. I said, well, are we weak? No. Then what do you care what he thinks? Well, I said, can't have it both ways. If you think you're weak and you want to appear strong, then I guess we need to respond. But if we are strong and you don't feel,
the response doesn't make you stronger.
Doesn't make you stronger. Right. So you get an offer to settle and it's very low. They'll say, well, that's an insult. I said, why? Well, it's low. It's too low. Said the only way an offer can be an insult if it's written on a piece of paper, rolled up into a tube, and jam it in your eye. Otherwise, it's just a low offer. That's up to you to how do you want to view it. You like, if you want to be insulted, go ahead. But what if you aren't? What if you say,
Right,
thank you
what
very
if
much, I'm
you're
not
Yeah.
interested in you? What if you say, thank you very much, that's too low. Uh, I'm not interested in that, but I will take this much. What
Yeah.
happens if you do that? Uh, without any other
Yeah.
accompanying message. I mean, but
It's hard because the
that's
ego gets tied up in there and all that
yeah.
emotion gets tied up in there, and you
Right.
think it has some sort of bearing on you. And yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the okay, low ball offer. Uh, that who the heck is this guy to think he can do that?
Yeah.
He
I'm
doesn't
being
respect me.
disrespected.
Right.
Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
You know, like it's you don't have to let that happen,
Yeah.
but
The-
you are letting it happen because your default is is to respond to provocation rather than to say, what if I don't? And
Mm-hmm.
and it okay, so I'm standing in court on Friday and the other lawyer uh intimated, didn't say it explicitly, but intimated that I had done something dishonest. Actually, the associate worked for me. It was my responsibility. And I stood up and I said, I have about had it with these accusations that I've done something dishonest and unethical. If this lawyer believes that, he should be reporting me to the bar instead of telling you about it. This is to the judge. And judge is like, well, I didn't take it that way. I think, you're taking it personally. And I said, perhaps, but judge, I felt the need to defend the integrity of my law firm. Now, that was a situation where I thought, what if I don't respond? If I don't respond, maybe the judge thinks he's not responding because this accusation is true. I need to defend
Mm.
it. I need to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
I need to defend it vigorously. So there are times when you do.
The outcome there in court's a little different than, how I feel sitting on my couch at night going, maybe my feelings were hurt. So I
Well,
understand. Right?
you go home at night and your wife has not cleaned the house and she knows that's important to you because you've talked about it in the past and you say, oh, she did that because she did it intentionally because she doesn't respect me enough to clean the house.
Yeah.
That requires a response.
Yeah.
Or you could say, she just didn't clean the house. I mean, you could just say that. You can stop, right?
Right.
She just
you
have the choice. You have the choice to do that. You have the agency to do that, right?
Yes.
You have the
There's a
dominion over that. You don't have control over whether your wife cleans the house. You have
you weren't
dominion
there.
to your response.
You couldn't. Yeah. You showed up to it.
Yeah.
You made me think of something, and you may even know this guy, Dredd. I heard this guy talking, and it affected me then. But it is funny how stuff just doesn't sink in because stuff takes practice and life's hard, right? But this guy, he's an attorney in Charlotte, and I heard him speak at one of these networking breakfast, groups that I used to belong to, way back a million years ago, right? And he was born, his arms basically with almost no arms, right? Genetically deformed, and he's got kind of, he told the story of like his parents refused to accept that this was just how it is, and your baby will never be anything, and whatever, he'll never be able to use this. So because they had the means to, right? They chose and they did a lot of surgeries and things. And so he has some degree of functionality in like his ability to like kind of hold a pen a little bit, and this kind of thing. And like, he can hold a fork and that kind of thing. Right. But really, piano's out of the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Concert pianist, right? Probably not. Right. But but it's visibly very deformed and very, very different looking, that, and kind of a thing. Right. And so he was telling this story of, what he went through and his parents, and all the surgeries and the pain and the stuff, blah, 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 blah. Right. And he's thinking to himself, he's like, man, I go through all that and still I'm kind of stuck with these, this deformed arm. And he goes, I'll be in like Panera Bread or something, and kids will just walk up and like touch him.
Yeah.
And be like, mommy, what's wrong with this guy? Or whatever. And he said, and I used to get so mad and I would be hurt and I would be frustrated. I would be like, how dare you? Can you not raise your child any better than, like, what is wrong with you? All this kind of stuff. Right. And he said, and then over time I realized, and this is the phrase that he used that I've used on my kids, and I try to keep in my head and, as often as I can. Right. He said, I realized that events are neutral. Same kind of thing. Right. Fact
Yep.
A thing happened, right? Events are neutral. And the only way they have any meaning is when you use your agency to hang a meaning on it. Kid comes up and touches his arm and goes, ew. And he says, now I look down and I go, gross, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then the kid's like, yeah, what happened? And then he talks to him about it. And then the kid's like, cool. And then he goes and sits down and there's, interaction over. And he's like, and I'm not mad at any, whatever. Right. But that idea that events are neutral, thoughts that come, the things that happen to us are neutral. They're just things that happen. Like we live in a world that thing, I don't control when it rains. I don't control when the wind blows. Right.
And I had a recent example where I used the what if I don't. It wasn't necessarily a self-limiting belief, but it was certainly a sort of a negative thought process, right? I was trying to focus on spending time with the family, but had a lot of work to get done, and sort of had this like I got to get into my office and do send some emails and do a PowerPoint and whatever, and just sort of started using the what if I don't, right? And the answer was, well, I could do it Monday morning before the meeting, and but I really struggled with that, and ultimately, like I was able to not do it during the weekend, spend some great time with family, and did it before the meeting, and the outcome was no different, right? So it was kind of left in this spot of like, brother to brother, all the blood runs red. Don't roll over, don't play dead, but we're all living on the razor's edge.
Mm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Geddy Lee wrote that.
No, that's not Geddy Lee.
This is great. And again, I think this is really timely for me, right? Because I feel like I said, I'm really trying to be more intentional and present with my family. So deliberate action toward a justified ends. And that end would be that I can be the father and husband that my family needs to help them sort of figure out what's their mission, what are the things they should be going after. And so as I'm doing that, it is all in the mind, right? I created this well, if I send one more email, but what if I don't? Nobody will notice is the answer to that. It'll be fine. I do want to, I think we wanted to talk through Zebra Jockey maybe as we're rolling through this year, but then also Dread, I did notice a whole new category of blog posts out there that you're doing sort of under this beliefs category. I don't know if that's something that we want to talk through.
We could.
As we're future
their
episodes.
post. I don't know that is that a book coming? Is that the beginnings of another book?
What I started doing maybe a year and a half ago was I'd have a thought, that basically was an aphorism. It's a strange kind of love to leave a man alive for fear the truth will make him unhappy, right? That's an aphorism, right? A short piece of wisdom. So over time, I probably have more than 200 of these things. And I have them in different categories. And belief is the first category. Another one is service. Another one is success. And so I got.
So it is a book. But we're just going to call them Dreadisms. That's the book.
So
no, it will be. It's a collection.
What I started doing is saying, people would ask me what something meant. For instance, the truly most men fear failure, but only truly gifted man fears success. And somebody would say, what does that mean?
What do you mean by that?
What does that mean? What do you mean by that? On Facebook or something. I would write out what I mean by that. Oh, okay. I get it. All right. So, and I think a good aphorism isn't obvious, double knot your shoes or something like that. It's just going to be something that makes you stop and go, oh, okay.
There's more depth to it than just
that's right.
Surface stuff.
The truly successful man would rather be sorry than safe. It's the opposite of, well, why do you say that? Anyway, I said, I realized that some of these things, when I tried to write the explanation, it didn't work. So they would say, what does that mean? I'd start to explain it. I'm like, actually, it's
not that good.
I get rid of it. So I said, it's not right unless it'll write. It's not right with an R unless it'll write with a W.
Yeah.
And so I went to the top of the list maybe 3 months ago. And I started with the first one and I said, okay, I'm going to write it, maybe just 500 words and explain it in the same way. So I'm writing the explanation before being asked is essentially what I'm doing. That and
A,
so
to make sure that it holds water, and then B, when you are asked, you have it's right there.
And I think ultimately, because I send these out every morning. Like I send them to you guys in the Whetstone, in the Blade group. The aphorism. And then I think ultimately I'll just, if I ever write all of them, I did have some thought that it might be a 365, like a day of the 365 days. Like I have one
the
for
Dread
every month.
calendar.
Dread's devotional.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I'm going to put together, and we're going to have like
it's not really.
No, it's not devotional. No, it's not
devotional because there's no scripture. It's not really religious. Right. Although I do talk about, where beliefs come from.
But it is timeless wisdom.
Hopefully.
I think so.
So
I think what we'll do is I'll start taking pictures of him, and we'll put together a calendar, Plague. That's what we'll do. It'll be good.
Well, I think we can go through, the first
sexy pictures of Dread every
first
day.
One you have on understanding, and there's some good ones. So I would love to talk through that, and I think the zebra jockey stuff is on our agenda. And I usually as well.
On our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man to the mountaintop hill. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't